this big topic. Let's go into the world of theater. Not on the big stages with 1,000 or more seats, maybe, for the spectators. Theater makers who work in smaller projects are not less important. And often these small projects deals inside the burning issues. With this panel, we asked theater makers about their experiences in their work with young people, with students, women and men. In many cases, they are not professionals, the participants. However, they are experts in the field of their reality, their school, their work, their families. Yes, they may be experts for the country and the issues we want to deal with. What we want to achieve is, we would like to hear from our invited guests about their experience and also about their visions for the future. The title of this conference reads like this: Challenges, Rights, Hopes. With the discussion, we want to create an exchange about different theater projects connected with the question what this means for the production. I would like to briefly introduce the invited experts. Oksana Potapova from Kyiv, now based in London. Hello, Oksana.
Greetings.
She's a trainer, practitioner of critical pedagogy, gender specialist, and feminist researcher. She works with groups and communities on issues of human rights, dialogue, gender, and women's rights. In 2014, Oksana co-founded Theater for Dialogue, an NGO where she has been working with communities affected by conflict, internally displaced, and other marginalized groups of women. Oksana is also a feminist researcher. Her work is based in action-oriented methods, and her advocacy is rooted in stories backed by data. Oksana combines her dialogue work with activism, research, and advocacy for gender-sensitive peace. In September 2020, Oksana has started her master's program in gender, peace, and security at the London School of Economics. Yeah. Then, second is then Gumenniy. Hello, Dan. Okay. He is a co-founder. Hello, Dan.
Hi, привет.
Hello. So, Dan Gumenniy is a co-founder of PostPlayTheater, based in Kyiv. Then is curator of educational projects of the interdisciplinary laboratory PostPlayLab, and he is a performer. No? Then Gumenniy has co-authored more than 30 performances in Ukraine, Czech Republic, Poland, Austria, and Germany. The most important productions for him at the PostPlayTheater, which deal with the traumata and the trauma of internally displaced persons and the war in eastern Ukraine, were The Grey Soon, The Insurgents, and Girls. Since 2020, he has been working on a new project for Ukraine, the so-called Bürgerbühne. It's a German term, maybe we can translate it in a stage for citizens. Yes? So, next is Georg Genoux. Hello, Georg.
Hello.
Hello. Georg is a theater maker and a filmmaker. He's based in Germany and in the Ukraine, and also Moscow. Yeah. He has directed and curated more than 80 theater productions and film projects, which participated in more than 80 theater and film festivals. He co-founded in 2002 Theater Doc in Moscow, and in 2006 he founded, and led since that time, the project Democracy Doc. 2008 to 2013, Georg Genoux was the artistic director of the Joseph Beuys Theater in Moscow. He has worked for years as artistic director in Sofia in Bulgaria. 3 years until 2017, he worked as an artistic director of the Theater of Displaced People in Kyiv. Since 2017, he has led his new theater project, Agency for Safe Space, about crisis regions of Eastern Europe. Yeah. And last but not least, Johannes Kirsten. He is a dramaturge based in Berlin. Besides working at various theaters in Hannover, Leipzig, Berlin, and Mannheim, he has been working since 2006 as a freelance dramaturg and author, for example, at Ruhrtriennale, the National Theatre Korea in Seoul, and Deutschland Radio Kultur. He's the author of several radio play features for Deutschland Radio in Berlin and Deutschlandfunk in Cologne. In January 2020, he curated the festival Carousel at Hellerau. It's a European Center of the Arts in Dresden, in Germany. It shows contemporary Russian theater and performances. Since this February, he is managing dramaturg of the Maxim Gorki Theater in Berlin. Hello to Johannes.
Hello.
So, this is a brief introduction of our panelists. And I would like to start this discussion on the panel. Later on, we would like to open and invite you to ask questions and give comments from the audience. Yes? First, we start with a discussion on the panel, and I'm very happy that you are all with us. And I would like to start with you, Oksana. Oksana, what is your experience with internal migration?
My experience with internal migration is long, but I will try to be brief. I am a student migrant and a labor migrant, I would say, because I was born and grew up in the east of Ukraine, in fact, but have lived in Kyiv since I was 15 or 16 years old. And that experience shaped me in many ways. And in fact, in Ukraine, if we talk more about policies now, the issues of internally displaced people raised a lot of legislative issues for internal migrants as well. Issues such as registration, voting rights, etc. But one experience I want to speak a little bit more about is my recent move to London, which on the one hand sounds like a very privileged experience, and it really is, but it showed me some very important aspects of what migration entails, which I have forgotten in a way. And those are some of the things that I have been living through, and I have also heard a lot of these same things from the women that we worked with. So those things have to do with actually losing all of your social connections when you move to a new country. Even if you are moving in a good condition, sort of with social security, moving to a place where you don't know anybody and don't have any social networks is a difficult experience. Changing your place in a social hierarchy is also something that happens during migration. And most of the time, you move down the social hierarchy, wherever you are coming from, depending on, well, maybe not in every case, but all of my experiences have been about moving down social hierarchy. And that is also a very challenging experience. And finally, not having anybody who can relate to you and understand what you are going through is also very challenging. So this feeling of aloneness. So I'm kind of setting the stage to speak later about how theater and community theater can respond to some of those things, because on the first glance, they may be very invisible. They are not something that is concrete, material, or money related, but it's part of the social fabric of community life that changes a lot when you are a migrant. And this has been my experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oksana. We will come later on this point again. I would like to continue with Georg. Georg, what is your experience with that migration, internal or migration at all?
Yeah, my experience is different. To end 2014 to middle of 2017, we lead it together with Ukrainian war psychologist Alexei Karachinsky and Ukrainian dramaturge and director Natalia Vorozhbit, a project which is called Theater of Displaced People, where we tried in Kyiv through theater projects, but also a lot of other common projects to connect people which is other who lost in the places from eastern Ukraine almost everything they had, and theater was actually a very good possibility at this time that people find new connection, new friends, and maybe the most important, not to be alone with all this what they had to survive. And for some of them, they even got part of our performances, and for them, I hope it was a good experience that somehow with their life stories, they were suddenly not anymore, they felt as victims but as heroes of their life stories. And yeah, that was 2.5 year experience in Ukraine, where I think we made somehow like 30 projects. And after 2017, I'm now, well, still working in Saxony with a project, the country I don't know, where I try through my theater and film project to connect people from other countries, mostly Syria, with citizens from Saxony, which is not so easy all the time, but I think we also find there some progress.
So you are a multi-layer migrant. First, you grew up in
Uwe, I don't hear you so good. Your microphone is very not.
Okay. Can you, when I talk like that, can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you better.
Okay, great. So, Georg, you grew up in Germany, and the first migration is you went to Russia, then to Ukraine, and now in the last past, you came back to Germany, and you told me that you felt like a migrant too. Beside that, you are from German.
Yes, because, well, I worked maybe 19 years in Russia, studied in Russia, and I feel in the theater scene, I felt myself, well, like at home, and it's, maybe you can't deliver your life and theater life from each other. And also I started to work in Ukraine from 2002. I think I made my first project. So, well, these countries are in everything very different to each other. And I can't say that Germany is anything bad to me, not at all. I met there a lot of wonderful people in Saxony, but still, it's a very strange situation. You're German, but you feel yourself in German theater a bit strange. Everything is different, but maybe that's not bad.
Thank you very much. Then, what is your experience with this topic, with migration, with internal migration?
Від початку війни на Донбасі та анексії Криму в 2014 році я працюю з вимушеними внутрішніми переселенцями. І це була проблема, з якою Україна не стикалася раніше. Ніхто не знав, як з цим працювати і що це таке, коли 3 мільйони людей приїхало з окупованих територій та з територій, де розпочалася війна. Якщо театр Георга Genoux, театр переселенця, працював на Сході, то своєю місією у 2015 році PostPlayTheater взяв саме працювати з тими людьми, які переїхали в Київ та Центральній області. І до 2016 року ми саме працювали з цими людьми, і PostPlayTheater на 80% складався з переселенців з Криму, як професійних артистів, режисерів, так і просто людей. Так і він складався з переселенців з Донбасу. Від 2016 року своєю додатковою місією для нас стало працювати з тими людьми, які залишились на Донбасі з якихось причин, або вони на цей Донбас повернулися. Бо за неофіційною статистикою біля 1,5 мільйони людей з 2016-2017 року, які виїхали з непідконтрольних територій, вони потім вернулися в прифронтові міста. І від 2016 року PostPlayTheater окремо, а від 2019 року разом з Георгом Genoux ми працюємо з підлітками на сході України з ціллю як терапевтичною, так і для того, щоб заново соціалізувати цих дітей і дати їм досвід іншого майбутнього і шанси на трошечки інше майбутнє, чим те, яке б вони отримали там. Показати якийсь приклад. І наскільки ми можемо, ми працюємо дуже точечно в маленьких групах, бо, на мою думку, мистецтво не може змінити весь світ, але одну людину воно змінити може. І ми шукаємо таких людей, і ми працюємо з такими людьми. Дякую.
Thank you very much. Then later on we will see an example you brought along for this panel. First of all, I would like to go to Johannes, Kirsten, and hello to Johannes. And what is your experience with the topic with migration or the related topics?
Well, we set the professional context out of our work in Gorki theater, just for as a personal background, which maybe shaped a view also on the themes which are connected to migration identity. And coming from East Germany and being very much influenced in the 13-14 of the happenings of '89, it was a very early question, of course not of myself, but to be part of, and the discussions of my parents, should we stay or should we go? And this is always the question, and they decided to stay and to organize themselves or to be part of opposition movement. But this is always in somehow question how to cope with society or conditions of societies which have. How do you react? Do we leave, which is totally understandable in many cases, a step, or are you trying it to do something, and how long do you try, and when are you going? So this is something which is somehow in the started to in teenager times to think about these questions. So of course in Gorki we come later to it, we deal in a certain different way about this, but this is maybe a main question which it's always in it.
Yeah, thank you, Johannes. Oksana, now you're in London, but before that you worked a lot in the field of theater, and you did a lot of workshops. We talked yesterday to prepare this panel, and I would like to start with the first video. You brought along a video for us, and I would like to ask Stefan to share the video of Oksana. And later, after watching this video, Oksana, could you please describe in your words what is the aim of your work and the practice? So now we have a look.
Yes, dear audience, you can find the link directly in the chat, and I will try to share my screen also with the video.
Mm-hmm. And Oksana, oh yeah, okay, it's geht's los. Now we start.
Ми не даємо відповіді. Ми ставимо питання. Питання я приходить мне сразу же били Ивано-Франковск. Нет, подальше от этого ада. Гарні люди, гарні чиновники. Да, у нас є якісь механізми, є закони, які там полічують. Є ограничення, але не все так мало.
Я столкнулась с тем, что в нашей стране системно образовалась как бы две платформы. Одна – это общественная жизнь, это организации, которые пытаются каким-то образом и делают, способствуют улучшению, помощи переселенцам. И государственная платформа, которые как бы делают, но эффекта мало. Язык – это просто песня.
Размовляйте українською. Я стараюся, у мене не виходить. Якщо воно не варить цієї проблеми, і шукати вихід якоїсь проблеми.
Западная Украина говорят на украинском языке. И есть такой стереотип о том, что кто говорит по-русски, тот там не наш.
А українською не написати? Дуже хочу.
Меня зовут Наташа, я из города Луганска. Сейчас живу под Львовом. Да, ну вот уже были подняты эти проблемы. Это наши справки, да, то, что мы как отдельная категория. Это проверки, это отсутствие у нас избирательного права на местном уровне. Я хочу себя чувствовать равной. И хочу, чтобы у переселенцев были равные возможности. Как можно чаще, может быть, проводить такие вот форум-театры, да, то есть это очень хороший способ в такой организованном виде показать наши проблемы, показать, с чем мы согласны, с чем мы не согласны, чего мы хотим.
Thank you. I'm not sure how much was understood from this, especially for non-Ukrainian audience. Hopefully my comment will bring some light. This is a video from 2016, a workshop which we conducted in Ivano-Frankivsk. It was a 3-day event facilitated with women who are both internally displaced and also women who have lived in Ivano-Frankivsk for some time. They consider themselves local activists, volunteers, and just actively engaged members of the community. And the methodology we have used is form theater, which is at the intersection of theater pedagogy, a community aesthetic practice, and often is also used as an action research method. So as you could have seen, a lot of the footage was of the workshop itself and less of the performance, but the work that we do includes both components. So it is a workshop where participants, mostly without any previous theatrical or artistic background, come together and share their stories and reflect on their lived experience around a proposed topic. So there is a subject or a question, a very broad question we put at the center. So using their bodies, images, stories, we look at each other, at ourselves, and there's a lot of things that happen in the process, as many of my colleagues will also confirm. This process is often emancipatory and liberatory on an individual level. There's a lot of trust building that happens. What is important for the kinds of theater that I have worked with is that it also has an ambition of being political project, not in a sense of a political party, but in a sense of addressing the power relations in society. So the kind of stories and questions we put on stage, we collectively as a group aim at transforming a situation that we as a community are not satisfied about. And the stories that are put on stage by the participants then invite the audience to come, to comment, to discuss, and to intervene in order to change the story, in order to brainstorm about possible solutions. Later on, this project grew into what we call legislative theater, where we started using these kinds of community dialogues to make direct recommendations to local policy and national level policy. So this is more about action research and advocacy level of the work. And because it's so brief, a lot of times we have done it in other communities outside of Kyiv. We only have 2.5 to 3 days. There isn't a lot of time that goes into sort of aesthetic decorum of the place or of the activity. But when I was thinking about how I could describe this kind of theater, we have in Russian this phrase "na kolenki," you know, it's like theater na kolenki. You do it on a little napkin in a cafe, something you draw a sketch, and it's enough because it starts the conversation. And this was our attempt. For us, oftentimes it was what comes after the theater was not less important than the theater itself. So maybe I will stop here.
Mm-hmm. One question to the starting point, does exist a key moment or something like that which brought you to this kind of work?
As it often is, it was my personal experience with the same methodology, where I was looking for ways to be engaged in activist and political life, and I couldn't find formats that would appeal to me, that could be empathetic, based on both rational and emotional part of me, of who I am, and on the aesthetics. I couldn't connect to protests and marches. I do now. I participate a lot more in public actions, but I think I've transformed a lot myself from a very introverted and self-contained person to somebody who engages a lot more. And I found that this kind of methodology helped me find my place in the political life of Ukraine. And I thought that maybe there are other people like me who are looking for a similar stage, literally and metaphorically, and the arts could be a medium. So this is how I started working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and could you describe a little more detailed about the process of one so-called production? There's a starting point. You find a theme or a question or a thesis, and then how to realize that, and you go for working in which place, which are your partners, and how do you find the participants or the actors or the members, the cast, mm-hmm. And how do you develop this, and until to the moment the artwork is getting published and will reach an audience?
How much time do I have? I believe like this could be an hour of conversation. All of those things are just, I'm sure that all of my colleagues will confirm, they are sometimes even more important than the theater production itself. Yeah, questions of entry points into a community, questions of PR, communications, mobilization of spectators. What I will just highlight a few maybe perspectives or focus that we have used in our work. It was important for us at the beginning to of the conflict and throughout to look at spaces, regions, and cities where less community engagement happens, and to dedicate our energy there. That's why we spent a lot of time outside of Kyiv. It was sometimes more difficult. We had less time. We were not sort of common there. Maybe it was in a way parachuting, but which I don't like as a term and as an approach. But coming back to the entry point, whenever we initiated a project or were able to mobilize resources, what was important for us is two things we asked ourselves. Is why is this topic important to us? We have to be honest with ourselves. There is something in me that moves me to work with this, and I have to be transparent. The other thing is, do I have people from the community, within the community, who actually have a need to work with this? And I want to make sure that the request comes from them, and my work is a response to their request, and it's a collaboration rather than me imposing or saving or rescuing somebody. And again, there's, you know, you can't never know for sure, there's always power relations, but I think because of that, we have been able to build partnerships with organizations and communities, and a lot of our participants of our events are now standalone activists. Some of them are practitioners of forum theater, and we maintain really close relationships on many levels. So the workshop itself follows, you know, a very simple structure, I would say. It's getting to know each other, building trust, researching the topic, and like doing artistic research through stories and body work and image work, and bringing it together around a simple structure of a forum theater play. What is important to underline is we try to maintain a participatory and a collective decision-making process throughout. So there isn't really a director per se who comes in at the end and says, okay, now I will, you know, there is a certain leadership role from the facilitator, someone like me, but as much as we can, we try to encourage a collaborative process. And I think there is a lot of empowering elements in that as well. And whatever happens during the performance and after it, we also encourage our participants to have collective ownership of the results. Okay, so what do you want to do with it? How do you want to take this forward? If we have resources, we can support you. But if not, maybe there are other ways you can carry this along. Again, removing ourselves from trying to maintain the rescue role as much as possible, and maintaining this partnership. Yeah, so maybe I would stop here.
Mm-hmm. Later on, we will focus other aspects, but maybe we take this and go further. Georg, you brought something along, a short video, and maybe we would like to share it now. And it's a trailer you mentioned, a trailer about a movie you presented at the film festival. Yeah, and what you said before is it's a kind of hybrid. It's a mixture of theater and film production. After watching the trailer, you will explain more detailed what's the background. Yeah. So this is yeah.
Красная зона. Купание запрещено. Ваня. Веришь?
Но мы сейчас, кроме Николаевки, ничего и не видели. Что мы сейчас живем такое чувство на том же Марсе, потому что мы и так ничего и не знаем, считай, про этот мир.
У меня недавно был такой случай, я принес виноград с огорода, и мне было жутко все лень делать. Я просто уселся на кухне, помыл виноград и начал его есть. И в этом винограде я увидел жука, при том, что у меня жутко болели ноги, и я просто мог его так раздавить и все. Я вот так его взял, отнес на балкон и выпустил с балкона, и он улетел. Мне не хотелось его убивать. Я не знаю, ну, не хотелось. И поэтому ставить вопрос, убью ли я человека, если я не могу убить жирка, как-то не ставлю я себе больше такие вопросы. Именно тот вечер, когда она говорит, что она опять с ним, мне так сразу противно становится, такой жар по лицу, по всему телу, и я хочу уже идти крошить и убивать. Но мне нужно идти на вальс. Да, я иду на вальс, весь вечер наблюдаю за одноклассниками, как они тренируются. На половине занятий выхожу домой, покупаю в ВТБ зажигалку, которую потом рассказываю. И весь вечер провожу за тем, что слушаю песни Radiohead. Как обычно, в принципе.
Thank you for this short trailer, Georg. What is the background about this project?
The background is that in end of 2014, so the year when the war because of the Russian aggression in Ukraine started, we went together with a volunteer organization which is called New Donbass, to rebuild a school in Nikolaevka, a little town, 15,000 citizens next to Slavyansk in east of Ukraine. And at first we helped just to rebuild the school because it was bombed. And then we started with a group of Ukrainian artists to start some artistic culture projects with the students and with the teachers, and somehow we got somehow very close to each other. At first they met us like the Nazis from West Ukraine. It was, and the people doesn't very believe in it. We were from them very strange people. But then somehow, at first we found good contact to the students, and after the step-by-step, the teachers and the parents started to feel good with us. Well, now 6 years later, we are going to there as like a second home. We made there also, I think, something like 30 projects together. We became very deep friends. And I didn't know how to support, to help. I can't, with my hands, rebuild a house. So Natalia Verzhbit and me, we just wanted somehow to support with that what we can do. And this is theater, and normally we making some provocative contemporary performances, but here the first time in our life we tried to make a nice performance, a performance which after people who had a lot of pain feel themselves good with. And the reason was that, well, it was very strange because it was a bombed town. It is a post-Soviet town, actually, with no cafe, actually, with no restaurant, with no kino, with no theater, with nothing, very dirty and dry. And actually at first view something like the hell of the world, but all these pupils, they spoke with so much love to their town. and we knew that they will soon leave the school because they have to graduate in institute and other things. So we wanted to make actually a performance which they will say goodbye to their town, to their parents, and we just asked them as a working task, which thing you would never leave Mykolaiv. And so based on this, we created a little performance with students from the upper classes, where there were authors and actors of their stories. We made it in a little classroom for, I think, 20 spectators. Drive to Ukraine, drive to Europe with this performance, and we stopped it in some moment when Natalia and me had the feeling that for some 7 performances it was good that they could speak about what they had to survive. But then I had the feeling it's not good to bring them always back to the situation. So we stopped it, but still we wanted to show it further. So we made a film with a team of Ukrainian kino makers, Taba Production. Lisa Smith is the co-director of the film, who already supported us to make the performance. So the idea grew together. And still now the pupils are from time to time traveling with the film, showing and speaking about it. And yeah, that's the background of this film.
So at the very first beginning, it was planned like a workshop, and a result of the process within 20 spectators in the audience at the local school.
Yeah.
And at the end, it was presented at, in this case, at the Berlinale in Berlin. It's a worldwide reflected film festival, and I was in the performance. You enter the stage with all these participants. The stage in a big cinema here in Berlin. The applause was enormous, and it was it was a great moment. To see the eyes and the faces. So many things happened to the participants. What could you talk about the effects and the consequences your artwork for the school or for the pupils?
Well, this is our main work in actually two times. Until 2017, I made it with a team of theater of displaced people. Since 2017, we are working together with Gumenniy and the PostPlayTheater, and organized in a lot of schools, a lot of projects. And it's about building personality. It's about for them a process of accepting themselves with their story, and it's about to work out perspectives. And I have the feeling that for a lot of these pupils, through the work with theater, they find at first perspectives for themselves in this world. Yeah, at first by this thing that there are some strange people coming from Kyiv or other countries, and they didn't forget about us. But then the brain starts to work, the soul starts to work, and we are traveling a lot. They are starting to get in contact with other people, other cultures, and we had a lot of pupils which you can call problem pupils. We are especially, and we are asked always, the teachers said, well, don't give us the leaders with the good marks in school, give us the hard guys from your school. And yeah, and I think it's just for them a kind of possibility maybe to understand the world and to find a place in this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that explanation. Then you worked you worked a lot with different peoples. You worked with professionals and with non-professionals, with amateurs, with pupils. It's a wide range of participants in your artwork. Could you present us your short video and explain us a little bit the background of that? I saw it on Facebook. It was a very nice comment, a wonderful comment, important comment about the consequences of seeing that performance. And maybe you can tell us more about the stones. But first of all, let's have a look in the video.
Трава пробивает землю, горячую изнутри. Далеко сердца разрывались ночью.
Мы о себе бились за тонкими веками, выливались в ночные крики. Мы строки, остров моей любви, земля горячая изнутри.
Как вы попробовали соединить перформативный физический театр с словом, здесь, непосредственно на площадке, от темы, от атмосферы, от действий перформера?
Далеко слезы лились.
Самое сложное во время перформанса для меня — это не противиться насилию.
Тысячи столетия. Лестницы революции. Таңдас міне қара кеші. Hiç yok, yok gözünde. Yıldızlar sağılmışalar, sineler gökyüzüne. Bir kasever yüreğimde, bir sevgi, ağrım.
So thank you, Dan, for that.
Okay.
And could you give us more details about that?
У 2018-2019 році PostPlayTheater зіштовхнувся з такою проблемою. Перед нами постало питання пошуку нової театральної мови. Чому? Бо від початку війни минуло вже біля 5 років, а смерті стали дуже звичними. Це вже не певні люди у ЗМІ, це лише якісь цифри, яких ми втрачаємо кожен день. Люди стали це просто щоденною статистикою, а насилля в державі стало звичним. Та щоденним, знову ж таки, праворадикальне насилля стало звичним, а насилля проти ЛГБТ стало звичним. До болю випрацювалася у спільноти дуже велика толерантність. І крім того, виникла всі дуже, очень усталі від того, що дуже багато болю, і він більше перестав сприйматися. Але насилля нікуди не зникло. Катування, питки в Криму, катування на території непідконтрольній Україні та катування на території підконтрольній Україні, воно нікуди не зникло. Але як про це казати? Якщо про це казати старими методами, навіть документального, нехай буде театру, коли в нас певні свідки є на сцені, це вже більше не працює на українського глядача. На жаль, і треба було шукати нові методи. Тому ключовим у цій роботі, яка називається «Трава пробиває землю» і базується на звітах міжнародних організацій про катування на території підконтрольної Україні та на території непідконтрольної Україні, стало документально дуже точне відтворення самого процесу катування. Тобто з 40 хвилин перформансу 10 хвилин – це дуже точне відтворення одного з найулюбленіших Федеральної служби безпеки Росії катувань – це задушення сміттєвим пакетом за допомогою будівельного скотчу. Від свідків, від тих людей, на кому, від наших знайомих, наших друзів, на кому були ці катування проведені, ми дізнавалися, як це відбувалося. Ми читали про це у звітах. А за допомогою військових експертів та за допомогою цивільних медиків ми навчилися, як це, по-перше, відтворити повністю документальне, бо перформер, яким я там був в тому перформансі, справді задихається за 7 хвилин у цьому пакеті. І пакет другим перформером розривається лише тоді, коли вже перший починає справді задихатися. Тобто це не грається. Тобто ці сцени, вони повністю відтворені. Чому? Бо, на нашу думку, тоді я до сих пір з цим згоден, лише таким способом, коли людина, яка знаходиться у залі, вона своїми очами бачить цей досвід катування, лише тоді можна до неї достукатися до її серця, достукатися до її мозку. Бо інші способи, на жаль, на той момент вже перестали працювати, бо всі ці наративи розмовні, вони відійшли до ЗМІ, частково вони стали інструментом маніпуляції, частково цим почала користуватися українська пропаганда та антиукраїнська пропаганда, але театру треба було шукати нові методи. Тому одним і найпершим, найважливішим методом для нас стало це точне фізичне відтворення катування на сцені. А другою, не більш важливою частиною цього перформансу були документальні фактури. У своїх роботах я дуже часто спираюсь на досвід Йозефа Бойса, який дуже багато працював, німецький художник Йозеф Бойс, він дуже багато працював з матеріями. І матерію він вважав дуже важливою, саме документальну, точну матерію. Тому у цьому відео ви бачили каміння, яке було привезене з окупованого Криму через цю лінію окупації, через кордон, спеціально його везли. А сіль, яка там у кінці використовується, це сіль з Донбасу, яка видобута з недр Донбасу. А пісок, який використовується у цьому перформансі, це завжди місцевий пісок. У Києві це був пісок з Київського, так званого Київського моря, з Дніпра. А у Варшаві ми використовували варшавський пісок. У прем'єрі в Чеській Республіці ми на фестивалі Форум 2000 до 30-річчя незалежності Чехії. Ми використовували чеський пісок, і саме праця з цими документальними фактурами давала нам справжню присутність та можливість перевтілитися та наблизитися до чужого досвіду. Бо, наприклад, в традиції кримських татар, якою ми користувалися під час підготовки цього перформансу, є таке поняття, як ненасильственний спротив. А такого не існує в Україні. У нас немає такого поняття, як ненасильственний спротив насиллю. А лише воно є у кримських татар. Коли я проти насилля, але я його приймаю. І дуже тяжко було навчитися не противитися насиллю, не відповідати насиллям на насилля, тому, що вміє це кримсько-татарський, наприклад, народ. І коли ти працюєш з цими документальними фактурами, які привезені, наприклад, там з Донбасу, чи привезені з окупованого Криму, тобі простіше доторкнутися до цієї культури. Бо, наприклад, як в нашому випадку, це були кримські татари. А дуже важливим також для нас була тут саме прості фізичні дії з цими фактурами, не наративні. Тобто ми інтерпретацію, якщо там в театрі раніше інтерпретація відбувалася режисером, тобто режисер певним чином інтерпретував щось, то для нас дуже важливо було, щоб інтерпретація відбувалася саме в залі. Перформери просто працювали, ну, умовно, просто працювали з фактурами. Наприклад, вони просто просіювали пісок. І на цю дію вже зал певним чином, спираючись на свій бекграунд, він вже якось це інтерпретував. Перформери просто катали, носили каміння, а перформерка просто танцювала на цьому камінні мікс з кримськотатарських та українських танців. І це вже інтерпретувалось певним чином саме глядачами у залі, а не наповнювалося якоюсь інтерпретацією нами, як художниками, які це відтворювали. Плюс дуже важливо для нас було це те, що вистава відбувалася тут і зараз, і вона наповнювалася змістом, знову ж таки, тут і зараз. І не менш важливим для нас були цитати та перформанси з класичних певних творів, тої ж Марини Абрамович, там цитується один з її творів, і так далі, так далі. Та й якісь маленькі особисті мікроперформанси. І ще однією важливою частиною цієї роботи це була документальна музика. Тобто ті звуки, що ви там чуєте, вони записані на диктофон в окупованому Криму, в Севастополі, в Ялті, і певним чином електроакустичним дуетом, з яким ми працювали, називається електроакустичний дует Гума, вони вже трансформувалися і ставали музикою, тобто шуми окупації, шуми військового флоту, шуми військових, які там патрулюють ці вулиці, вони перетворювалися на музику. І таким чином цей жах і жахіття окупації ставало мистецтвом, що для нас також додатковий і несе велике сакральне значення у тому ж числі.
Thank you very much, Dan, for this so-called report and for sharing this background. A short, brief answer maybe to the question, what about the spectators, to the audience? Who joined these performances?
Для мене завжди питання того, хто дивиться, це дуже складне питання, бо однією із задач нашого театру, в тому числі, було повертати увагу до проблеми Криму, весь цей, до ЗМІ. Тобто велика частина глядачів – це професійна публіка, це представники ЗМІ, це представники громадських організацій, це представники міжнародних фондів і так далі, і так далі. Це люди, які мають силу на те, щоб кожен раз віднаходити в собі сили, дякуючи цим перформансам, щоб кожен раз привертати знову увагу до проблеми окупації Криму. А люди, які виконують цей перформанс, це, ми нікому не могли делегувати цю роль, тому самі були перформерами у цій роботі, бо вона була небезпечною, перш за все. І я не можу, там, де я можу бути впевнений у собі, але я не можу делегувати цю роль комусь іншому, тому самі його і виконували.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you talked about the media. Is also written reviews to this as an artwork?
Please tell one more.
This production is very liveful. It's full of documents and is interdisciplinary. So the process is important, but also the premiere, the so-called the result, the performance, is also written as an artwork about that work? Like that reviews are published or printed?
Ну, в тому числі так, цю роботу переглядали і вимушені переселенці, бо ну, це зроблено не для них, але для того, щоб нагадати через мистецтво про їх історії. Тобто ми певним чином брали на себе цю роль і цю відповідальність. Для того і ми говорили за них, бо на той момент, на жаль, ці люди вже були позбавлені можливості навіть і джерел, через які вони могли б говорити. Тому за них говорили ми, бо в нас була ця привілегія, бо в нас був майданчик, бо в нас була можливість і в нас були люди, які могли нас у цьому підтримати. На жаль, статистика нам каже, що від 2018 року відношення до цих внутрішніх переселенців в Україні весь час погіршується. Тобто така низька довіра до внутрішніх переселенців, як вона почалась після 2018 року, вона була лише в 2014 році. І кожного року ця довіра до внутрішніх переселенців, вона знижується. Тому через такі акти мистецтва ми можемо знову і знову повертати увагу спільноти великої цієї української до проблем цієї маленької спільноти внутрішніх переселенців, які, на жаль, багато з них, якщо вони повернуться додому, чи то буде на окупований Донбас, чи то буде до Криму, вони можуть стати жертвою насилля. І ми це насилля відтворювали на сцені для того, щоб показати малим групі людей, як це відбувається, а ця мала група вже потім розносить цю інформацію, вона стає такими амбасадорами цього. І вона вже далі, в силу своїх можливостей, несе цю інформацію. І, можливо, ми щось змінимо, а можливо і ні, але ми спробуємо. Цей процес для мене багато в чому він важливіший від результату, бо часто сам процес для нас і є результатом нашої роботи. Тобто не зупинятися, працювати і давати таку можливість, і давати цей новий досвід. І вже через новий досвід хтось вже включається в цю історію, а хтось і ні. Але якось так.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for all this information about this internal. Thank you. Johannes, since February, you work in the Maxim Gorki theater in Berlin. This theater is for years now famous for this term, so-called post-migrant theater. It's a very special term. There's a background behind that. Would you please maybe present us your video example and go deeper in the background of this very special perspective?
Yes, of course.
Border, I wish.
Dehymatize is definitely going to involve curves, circles, finding new language to tackle and break those rigid straight lines.
Mix it up, mash it up, smash it up, and shake it around until new forms come.
Learn a lot in different way from different system of knowledge.
Breaking down the barriers, the norms, the social hierarchies based on identity dimensions, which prevent us from embracing difference and valuing diversity in our European societies for more justice and equality.
It's about committing to practice, engage in discomfort, and about love.
We have to keep sharing, listening, and watching to create a better collective story.
I believe that this diverse multilingual voice can lift us all up. Our empathy, our solidarity, our struggle.
We want to try to form some kind of new GPS, finding different alternatives rather than accepting what we are said to be born into.
Wir müssen uns umwirren, entwirren, unwirren.
Deheimatized means for me that I finally don't have to talk about Heimat anymore, never ever again.
Ni Dios ni patria, ni marido ni partido, ni rey ni reina, ni orden ni reglas.
A more inclusive narrative using art from the past and the present to bring about change.
Thinking about belonging in a different way, not as an exclusive right.
Deheimatized is to resist.
About learning to really see the violence and separations that keep the current systems in place, about acknowledging my own entanglement in these systems, refusing to accept them as normal, and being able to imagine worlds beyond patriarchy, capitalism, racism, anthropocentrism. It's about
challenging immobile idea of Heimat.
And nowadays we should think globally and act regionally.
When home means more than just one country.
We're not losing anything, we're gaining.
We say we are together in a common practice of solidarity. We are a force. They cannot stop us. Deheimatized, cuarto salón de otoño en Berlín, del 26 de octubre al 17 de noviembre del 2019.
Seit Dienstag fehlt auch vom Penis jede Spur.
Thank you, Johannes, for this clip.
Yes. First of all, I'm here representing an institution, and I'm not like the others, an artist who is doing its own projects, which is maybe a certain difference also in the approach now to talk about. And this institution, the Maxim Gorki Theater, the clip you saw is in somehow when Uwe Gössel was mentioning this term post-migrant theater, it's in somehow a result after working several years on these themes of migration identity. This was a video for the 4th Berliner Herbstsalon, Berlin Autumn Salon, which is an exhibition every 2 years. It was formed in the first year of the Gorki Theater under the direction of Shem Langhoff and Jens Hilje in 2013. There was the first Herbstsalon, and it's a biennial exhibition and performances around it. And then somehow these Herbstsalons are concentrating questions where we are dealing also through the whole season and the productions and the normal theater productions with. And the second Herbstsalon had the theme migration, and now this fourth one was called Deheimatized. So Heimat is a German word for Rodina, homeland. And so the big question, which also goes along and with this post-migrant, this term of post-migrant theater, is questioning this narration of homogenic national identity, first of all, and to see or to acknowledge that migration is not a state of exception, or not to understand as a state of exception, but it's that the phenomenon of migration is shaping also their so-called majority of society, and they are to get somehow or give access to stories which are shaped by exile, by migration, by separation, and not just to talk about, but to let people who have several backgrounds having a Turkish background, Vietnamese background, Russian, Ukrainian, whatever, to on one hand deal with German classics, yes. So there's a different on the so-called canon, and when we talk about national identity, which is a lot shaped also by art and by official artworks. So when we have all looking through the history of drama and literature, and so we have these canonic works, and what happens when we look from a different perspective, and different people are on the stage, and there is no more this homogenic white society on the stage dealing with certain themes, or these classics. This is one thing to questioning this, and of course then to deal a lot with actual questions, problems, and coming out of this. And there's a that's just to add. Beside the dealing with the themes of migration and post-migrant society, there is since 2016 in November. This was somehow also the next step. The foundation of an exile ensemble, which is now not longer existing as a separate ensemble, but part of the whole Gorki ensemble. These were actors, are actors from Syria, from Palestine, mainly, and from these backgrounds. And there are a lot of questions, of course, not just considering the themes, but also the question of language, because we are a German state theater, and the most common language still is German on the stages in Germany, but we have a lot of now non-native speakers, and so the German is still in somehow the leading language, but there are a lot of multilingual performances, but also some other theaters is in Berlin as well. But it was from the first season as well the common sense to have English subtitles, for example, in all shows. So to give an access to international community, at least in English. So this is maybe very briefly what Gorki Theater is doing since 2013, and what questions are in the in this season. I mean, besides Corona, and the pandemic, where we didn't talk at all about it, which is of course shaping a lot. Also, this whole dealing with at the moment with migrations, lockdowns, the borders, and so on. We have we have only Chevengur by Platonov. That's an only classic we do at the moment. The rest of the shows are all new plays, projects. So this is in somehow big luxury. The Gorki team, and I'm now joining, created that they are dealing with very actual questions, and so the people are coming for seeing certain themes and questions, and not at first hand the famous title or something. This is maybe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johannes. There are a lot of terms in your review which are very important. For example, the language, how to deal with the language. This would be a very interesting point to discuss deeper with all of you. The borderlines. There's a wide range of topics belonging to our theme. We haven't spoke about money yet, and we haven't spoke about the perspectives and the forecast, the perspectives now. But maybe we, but I would like to open this panel for the audience, And maybe these terms I mentioned right now can guideline a little bit the last minutes we share together. And I would like to ask to the audience, do you have comments or questions to the panelists?
I can jump in.
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Hello. Because I do have many. So the audience has some time to formulate some. Actually, you can put them either in the chat or in the Q&A session, or you can raise your hand and we can bring you to the stage as well. So you can actually formulate your question directly here with us. Yeah, actually, what somehow is uniting many approaches of yours is to engage some kind of discomfort with normalities people are facing, or with that they're like also like normalized rituals that people are doing, and that are of course socially reproduced always. Yeah, and if this is not something deeply political, I don't know. So are you regarding the stages and your work actually as something political? And maybe for Oksana as well, because you were kind of answering the question already before and said, yeah, okay, this is, I would consider this is like also political action. What is the reaction actually from audiences sometimes if you concentrate on female challenges, for example, and that you mainly work with women? Is it what is the perception sometimes also then of a maybe also male audience? That would be interesting. Can they connect to that, or do they feel sometimes like taken out from the discourse, which yeah, we are not so used to? The we is a non-collective one, of course.
This is a question to me directly or to everyone?
So I would say the first question of the political to everyone, and the second question about the gender perspective, yeah, maybe also to everyone, but okay, like, because you answered the political one already.
I don't know if someone wants to go, has an answer to the first question. Wants to start?
Oksana.
Well, I actually, even though my education here is not connected directly to theater, and maybe going to Goldsmith or something like this would have been more logical, and studying applied arts, one of the courses that I'm taking on post-coloniality and development is providing me a lot of insight into how and why this work is political. And we talk a lot about the role of discourse and the role of culture and our everyday understandings of life as an important tool of regulating societies, yeah, and governmentality and the way of ordering people's lives nowadays doesn't happen anymore through coercion or fear or policing. It happens through very insistent and powerful normalization of what is okay and isn't, which makes us seem like, you know, we are choosing to live this way ourselves. The question is whether this choice is really authentic. And I think this is where it's both important that theater makers have a critical lens about this dominant discourse and how we can break it or expand it. And one of the phrases or descriptions of what I think many of us are doing, most of us and all of us in this panel are constantly shifting the center, where the center is and where is the margin, who is at the margins, whose stories are and experiences are not being told, and how we can stand at the margins and be so loud and be so visible that the attention from the center moves to the margins and expands. To me, this work is very political, because once we challenge the question of the norm, and I think a lot of the interventions on the video that Johannes was showing were talking exactly about that. This is where we can actually liberate the mobilizing potential of people and communities to create their own reality on the local level, on the political level, through participatory democracy, through representative democracy, through many other like existing political channels. And it's not an easy work. Coming back to Stefan's questions about specifically highlighting the experience of a certain group, like women, for example. It could also be youth, it could be LGBT, but the group that we regard as other, yeah? Men and women are often positioned as separate, different, the other. And what can we do as theater makers so that the experience of the other is seen and visible in its fullness, but it's also not seen as something completely separate, and is not seen as an attack. You know, sometimes when men watch our plays that we do with women and about women, they start arguing or denying or asking questions like, why are you working only with women? Why are you discriminating men? And things like this. And the good thing about our performances is that we have a chance to invite the person on stage and to allow them to be in the role of one of our characters for a minute or two. And sometimes it works when a person immersing themselves in the role of a mother who comes back from her activist intervention or from work, has a child that is attacking her, I need to eat, and a husband who is telling her, take care of me, listen to me, how my day went. Suddenly put in these social circumstances for a moment or two, this man starts to understand what it means to be a woman in a socially constructed world. Yeah, I'm not talking about the woman as a sex, it's about woman as a social category. So these kinds of experiences create both, I think empathy is not enough. We need to have empathy and critical thought at the same time. I think only critical thought sometimes can be cold and very prickly and very dissociating. Only empathy can be soft and soothing, like we're just all friends, there's no problem, let's just all agree. How can we have empathetic and critical discussions at the same time? I think actually different theater practices can provide us really important spaces for that. And I think this work is deeply political. I'm convinced of that.
Yes, thank you very much, Oksana. Stefan, do you have any other questions from the audience? Or does anybody of the others would like to admit something?
Yeah,
Stefan, the question is to you now. Does anybody else have a question, or shall we go further with that question to the other panelists?
I would like, if you like, I would really love to get the answer to my question about the political aspect of theater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe
Johannes,
I jump in. I think the political aspect is not questioned at all. I mean, of course, it's a very general thought about that theater when it happens, not like now at the moment, but life that it isn't somehow a gathering of people, like in of a micro society, maybe special one who is interested in art, but this is always a big discussion, of course, how to get, I mean, since years in Germany, how to connect with other communities, and therefore is that also that post-migrant approach, and to have spaces, to have possibilities to tell certain stories, very important to picture a wide range of society, and to question what we did in also with this phrase of the Herbstsalon, the belonging and belonging for what, or belonging to what in general, to what kind of identity, to what kind of group, to what kind of political part of society, and somehow discuss it through the thesis in a play, a theater work, and an artwork is bringing into the world, or is proposing, and the reaction of the audience. And of course, there is not just what is happening on the stage, I would say, in Gorki, when I'm mentioning the Herbstsalon and so on. Everything what is around, it's like a fourth stage. So interviews, something like this, what we are doing now, discussions in the theater, which is shapes or formulates a field of political, in the very original sense of politics, for dealing with the society of a city, because and of course then broaden of a country. But at first we are a theater in Berlin, and dealing with the society of that city, and the reality of that city, and all its contradictions, and in all its changes all through the years, the last years.
Yeah. Thank you, Johannes, for this comment. In order to the time now, we have 90 minutes now. Maybe there's another possibility to join the platform of this conference. And for that, many thanks to everyone involved for this exciting discussion. Thanks to the team of translators in the background. Thank you for this important initiative by the organizers. The subject will remain with us, unfortunately. I wish everyone an inspiring discussion on the following panels, and stay healthy.
Yeah, thanks to all the panelists, and of course, big thanks to you, Uwe, as well. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you from my side as well. And just a short reminder that at 4 o'clock we are waiting you for the networking, and link you can find in the chat. So please have a good rest, really, like maybe on the fresh air. It will be a great idea, and we will see you in 25 minutes.
Bye.
Bye.